Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever seen a news story where a prime minister seems to just snap their fingers and pass a new law, while a president has to fight tooth and nail for months? Well, it turns out there's a really simple reason for that. It all comes down to how their governments are actually built, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
So let's just imagine for a second, you're starting a country from scratch, total blank slate. You got a million things to figure out, right? But what if I told you that the entire structure, the whole political DNA of your new nation, would really just boil down to how you answer two and only two very basic questions? All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at those two big questions. Then, we'll explore the different ways to answer them. Is power central or divided? Are leaders fused with the legislature or separate? We'll see how this plays out with presidents versus prime ministers, and then we'll check out how these models get mixed and matched in the real world. Now, I know it sounds almost too simple, but it's true. Whether you're talking about the United Kingdom, the United States, or even a country like France, their entire political systems are built on the answers to the exact same two fundamental choices. So what are they? Okay, here we go. Question 1. Where does the power actually live? Is it all concentrated in one capital city, or is it spread out across the country? And question 2. How do you pick the leader? Is that person part of the team that makes the laws, or are they totally separate? These two answers, that's it. They are the fundamental building blocks for pretty much every government you can think of.
Let's dig into that first question, because it's a big one. This is all about the geography of power. Does one government in the capital city get to make all the final decisions, or do smaller, regional governments get their own slice of the power pie that can't be taken away? This one choice creates two very different systems. So one option is what we call a unitary system. You can think of this as a top-down approach. All the real, ultimate power lives in one central government. Now, it might give local towns and cities some power to handle, say, schools or local roads. But, and this is the crucial part, it can take that power back whenever it wants. It's basically on loan.
The other option is a federal system. And here, power isn't just loaned out, it is constitutionally split. The national government is in charge of some things, like the military, but the regional governments, what we call states or provinces, have their own powers that are protected by the Constitution itself. The central government can't just decide to take them away. So you can see there's a major trade-off here, right? A unitary system is designed for uniformity and efficiency. The same rules apply everywhere, which can make things move really fast. A federal system, on the other hand, is built to allow for local autonomy and diversity. Different states can try different solutions to the same problem.
All right, on to our second big question. This one isn't about geography. It's about relationships. It's about the relationship between the people who write the laws and the person who leads the country. Are they on the same team, or are they basically set up to be rivals? Well, in a parliamentary system, the two branches are basically fused together. The leader, the prime minister, is almost always a member of the parliament, and they're chosen by the majority party in that parliament. This means if they lose the support of their team, boom, they can be voted out. Their power is directly tied to the legislature's approval. And then you have the presidential system. This model literally builds a wall between the two. The president is elected in a totally separate election from the legislator. They serve a fixed term, they don't sit in Congress, and they can't be fired by it unless they're impeached. They each get their power directly and separately from the people. And this makes a massive difference in how things actually get done. A parliamentary system is all about accountability and being responsive to the legislature. A presidential system, however, is all about stability and having deliberate checks and balances on power. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's see how these theories actually affect the real-world power of a leader. A great way to do this is to put the US president and the British prime ministers side by side and see how these systems change their jobs. This shows something pretty fascinating, almost a paradox. Administratively, the US president looks more powerful. They're the undisputed commander-in-chief of their entire branch. But when it comes to getting laws passed or a budget approved, the British prime minister, who leads the majority party in parliament, is way more powerful. They can pretty much guarantee their agenda becomes law. Yeah, to really see the president struggle, just look at the journey a bill has to take in the US. It can get totally buried in a committee. They call it getting pigeonholed. If it even survives that, it has to pass debates and votes in 2 different houses of Congress. It can be changed or killed at any of those steps, long before the president even gets to look at it. So, as you can imagine, countries in the real world don't always just pick one of these pure models off the shelf. They often get creative. They mix and match different elements to fit their own unique history and culture, and they end up with some really cool hybrid systems.
For a great example, just look at Switzerland. It's a federal system, just like the US. But instead of the often combative relationship between the federal government and the states you see in America, the Swiss model is built entirely on cooperation and finding consensus. Their regional governments, called cantons, have a ton of autonomy. They're even the ones who carry out most of the federal laws.
So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The next time you hear about politics in some other country, and it sounds confusing, just stop and ask yourself those two key questions. Where's the power live, and how is the leader chosen? Seriously, that simple framework will give you a huge head start in understanding how their entire government is wired.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Each one of these models reflects a different value. Is it more important to have a government that's efficient and can act decisively, or is it better to have one with built-in speed bumps and roadblocks to make sure no one part becomes too powerful? There's no easy answer, and the path a nation chooses is what truly defines it.